Winfred will pass index cards. If you have any questions for Dr. Chakula, we'll write your questions. And then, okay. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Do whatever you need to do, call whoever you need to call, text whoever you need to text, then your phone's flight mode. Okay? Okay. We have some snacks here, if anyone feels the need, before we start. You're welcome.
You don't have the lid?
You can plant these pictures in 30 minutes.
At the same time, he's just like the way that the African microwave, free from the provider and trade. Yeah.
Let's do start standing.
Yeah, but again.
Okay, there's someone there. Yes.
I think he will stand there if he sees me.
Hello. Okay, so we are about to start. As by my earlier request, all phones on flight mode, please. We don't want any distractions. Since the projector has failed us, we are going to improvise a bit as we wait for the guy to come. So you can go through the slides after we start.
You're taking pictures as well. My phone is full. Oh, yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Chakula Bora speaker series. My name is Dennis Odhiambo and I am thrilled to be the moderator for this exciting event. Chakula Bora means healthy food in Swahili. Healthy food strengthens the human immune system and is the first line of attack against disease. Healthy food begins with healthy soils. The Chakula Bora speaker series is an initiative of Passion of Hope International to create a forum for policy discussions on triple P-based solutions. That is, people and profit equals productivity for food security and food sovereignty in Africa. Hello and welcome to the Chakula Bora speaker series. My name is Dennis Odhiambo and I am thrilled to be a moderator for this exciting event. Chakula Bora in Swahili means healthy food. Healthy food strengthens the human immune system and is the first line of attack against disease. Healthy food begins with healthy soils. The Chakula Bora Speaker Series is an initiative of Passionate Hope International to create a forum for policy discussions on triple P-based solutions. That is, people plus planet equals productivity. Our goal is to engage in dialogue on these critical issues with farmers, agricultural students, extensionists, researchers, economists, ecologists, pastoralists, value addition players, policy influencers, and concerned global citizens. Together, we can work towards a sustainable and equitable food system that benefits all. And today, I am delighted to introduce our special guest, Dr. Shem Kuya. Dr. Kuya is a senior lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Nairobi, Kenya. With over a decade of research, teaching, and working with farmers, he knows how agricultural crops and trees function and how they interact with the environment. His design experiments evaluate the influence of plants on the environment and the effect of the environment on plants. He has keen interest on how agroforestry and forestry systems can help fight climate change, create resilient production systems, and stabilize livelihoods of smallholder farmers. He also has interest in any approach that promises to transform underperforming smallholder farms to productive and profitable systems. Dr. Kuya is part of a group of scientists that combine empirical studies with research synthesis, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis. He also enjoys teaching ecophysiology, forestry and agroforestry resource management, and basic research methodology. He pioneered the Makueni project, farming in the semi-arid area using retained water membranes. We are honored to have Dr. Kuya on the hot seat today, and I can't wait to hear more about his insights and experiences. So, Dr. Kuya, welcome to the Chakula Bora Speaker Series. You're the first one. Can you tell us a bit about your experiences from where you were brought up and how you got into the agricultural sector?
Thank you so much. So I'm trained from Jomo Kenyatta. My undergraduate I trained in biotechnology. Then masters I trained in plant physiology. And my doctorate I trained in plant sciences with a focus on climate change mitigation, where we look at the role of trees in mitigating climate change. But then I switched to looking at the benefits that trees in agricultural landscape provide to people, what we call ecosystem services, and later shifted into options that can help us sustainably intensify agricultural systems. So my interest in agriculture, in farming practices, dates back when I was a young person. I was raised in the village in Western Kenya. So my interest was promoted by my grandfather and my grandmother, who are both farmers. So I have a chunk of indigenous knowledge on production systems and on food systems based there. But then also I'm able to merge the indigenous knowledge with the scientific knowledge that I've received during training. So I grew up as a farming boy, herding cattle, feeding on berries during lunch hours from school, as well as producing vegetables for both household consumption and also for sale for our household.
Thank you so much for that. For those who don't know, can you tell us just a little bit about the retained water membranes?
Yeah, so the soil water retention membrane technology that we did in Makueni was an initiative of several institutions, including Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, SWAT Solutions in the US, and SIAT, Biodiversity Alliance in Kenya. And the idea is to look for a technology that can rebuild the functionality of sandy soils. What we know is that sandy soils have a limitation. they cannot retain water, and also they cannot hold on nutrients, and that affects farmers' capacity to produce, because what happens is farmers get discouraged from irrigation, and also they do not apply fertilizer, and therefore productivity of sandy soils is low. Now, given the food situation that we have to look for mechanisms that will make all areas productive without expanding the area under agricultural production. So the membrane is designed in a way that it can be able to hold water so that the water does not percolate, and in the process it's able also to hold the nutrient, allowing the water and nutrients to be available for the crop for a longer period. In this technology, there are high density polyethylene membrane that are installed in a U shape design. So you have trenches that are dug in the land. The first trench will be, for example, 40. Alternatively, the next trench will be 60, so that the whole land surface is covered by that membrane. And then the membrane then will be able to withhold water and allow production of crops.
So today you'll be talking about push and pull principles in agroecology. Can you just briefly introduce the topic before we start going through the slides?
Yeah, so push-pull is an innovative technology developed by ICIPE. ICIPE is the International Center for Insect Physiology and Ecology. So ICIPE and partners developed this project mainly as a pest control tool. It uses chemicals that are produced by plants to divert insects from a valuable crop away into another crop that is of less value or that is a trap crop. So the idea is that you have an intercrop that has a crop of value. In this case, it will be cereals, because push-pull in Kenya mainly is based in cereal production system. And then you have a border crop that then attracts the insects. So for this push-pull, you have desmodium, which emits chemicals that pushes the insect, that repels. It's a repellent. And then you have napier grass or bracharia that is planted on the border, and that's now the trap crop. So what happens is that the desmodium releases chemicals that diverts insects away from the crop, and then now bracharia releases also chemicals that attracts those pests. In this case, the insects are the stem borer and then also the fall armyworm. Serendipitously, this technology was also found to control striga. Striga is one of the parasitic weeds that can cause up to 100% crop failure, and it's common in cereals. So the desmodium, which is the companion crop of push-pull, is able to control striga. So the technology controls stem borer, controls fall armyworm, and it's also able to control striga. So that's what I can say brief about push-pull technology.
Thank you so much. Now I'll just leave it up to you to take us through your slides. I'll be helping you over here.
Thank you.
So if you need for me to go to the next slide, just show.
Thank you so much. So welcome to today's presentation. I have an outline that shows what we'll be talking about today, but I also have a list of questions that have dotted the literature on agroecology, because we're looking at push-pull principles in agroecology. There are certain questions in agroecology that remains unanswered. And I strongly believe that understanding push-pull can help us get answers to these questions. For example, one of the questions that farmers are always asking is, will their yields shrink if they engage agroecological practices? Okay? And others are asking, either agroecological practices or agriculture, is agriculture profitable? And this question has been asked around for a long time. If it's profitable, why are people not going into it? If it is not profitable, what will happen to those who are doing agriculture or agroecology move out? And that then brings us to the elephant question, which is, can agroecology feed the world? Okay? And so we have these questions that as we look at push-pull, you want also to think through and see whether we can use push-pull as a template that can help us explain some of the questions that remain unanswered in agroecology. Yeah, so the first thing I thought we need to warm up ourselves is what Dennis has already told us about Chakula Bora. My first encounter with formally with the Chakula Bora discussion was with Stella and Isaac in one of our meetings, and then this concept was also later expounded to me more by Brian in one of the meetings also, and it generated an interest in me regarding what I eat, but it also generated another concern about what people eat. And so I set out to find out what do people say about this Chakula Bora, what are there. And so what I noted is that there are two outstanding elements of Chakula Bora, and that has to do with the nutritional value of the food and then also the safety of the food. And that relates to the production systems that we are using, whether the production systems are able to produce the food that has all the nutrients that we need to keep us healthy, and whether we are able to reduce without too much chemicals that can affect our bodies and the environment. But then there is also the reverse, because we're saying as we discuss about this Chakula Bora, as we increase our understanding, then we are able to counter the Bora Chakula concept that dominates our mindset. And so when we ask ourselves what is in our tables in the landscape, we find that we have less nutritious food, and there is a reason behind that. We have unsafe food, meaning because of the production systems, either they are chemicals or the processing systems. And in certain situations, we have even no food to eat. So those are the three scenarios that we encounter when you're talking about Chakula Bora. Less nutritious, either it's not diversified, unsafe food, or no food at all. And no food at all means those situations where there is hunger, either severe hunger or moderate hunger. And so the question is, why should we be concerned? My thinking is we need to be concerned because the culprit of Bora Chakula still dominates, it still continues. How have we found ourselves in this situation? It's because of monocultures that dominate our landscapes. And the other thing that you need to be worried is, I invited two studies that totally conflicting findings. One study finds that poverty is reducing globally, which we need to reduce. But the other study finds that there is increasing food insecurity. So however much you are running away from poverty, you find that food insecurity is still following you. So depending on what is following after you, then you need to run faster. So that's why I think we need to be worried.
In our country, do you think, or as a continent, can we pivot from what we are producing now using fertilizers to growing organic food and producing the same amount enough for people?
That is the debate, that is the question, and that's one of the questions that was up there. Can agroecology produce enough? Can we produce enough without external inputs? I think in the initial period, no, but over time, yes. Because also there is the fears about agroecology that are related to depressed yields because of the transition. But then as you rebuild soil fertility, and as you optimize the knowledge of production, then it is possible. But then it's not practical for us to say, next year we move into agroecology and we can feed the whole world, or we can feed ourselves. Thanks. So here I just thought of trying to remind us how we have found ourselves here. And what we know, those who have worked up outside the city is that most of agriculture in Kenya has been undermined by monoculture, which is brought about the industrial agriculture. And when you look keenly into the data that we have, you will realize that maize has nowadays successfully eliminated certain cereals. Maize has successfully eliminated sorghum, it has successfully eliminated millets, and it has also eliminated tubers as some of the sources of calories. Actually, maize occupies in Africa the table. It accounts for over 50% of the calories consumed by humans. And it says now humans are fighting with animals for maize. And so, what is the outcome of this? When we have these monocultures, it means that we have reduced the species diversity. We have a narrow range of species, which now is subject to attacks by pests, but also it affects the diets that we have, because then we are focusing on cereals alone. And you and I know that when people talk about food insecurity in Kenya, they are saying that there is no maize. And that has a problem with hidden hunger. Because then depending on the farms where we are producing, and that's now the aspect of degradation. Continuous monocropping brings about degradation. And so as we deplete soil nutrients, it means that the crops we are producing do not have sufficient nutrients. So what we are feeding is not providing for us the nutrients that we need. And that brings about that thing called hidden hunger. So that food then, it is not healthy food. But then there is also the other extreme aspect of it, that industrial agriculture is heavily dependent on external inputs. That has two problems. One of the problems is toxicity and pollution. But the other aspect is also vulnerability of smallholder farmers to fluctuations in market prices. So when your farmers, or when our mothers and brothers and sisters who derive livelihoods from farming, when they have to depend on fertilizer or other external inputs, it comes a time when they cannot plant because the prices can hike when they don't have sufficient. But when you are using agroecological practices, then it is possible. You have resilience. You are able to withstand those shocks that are associated by hikes in prices. So I think agroecology helps there in helping our farmers be autonomous. It brings autonomy to our farmers. But also the other culprit that dominates our population is either what we call lack of information on Chakula Bora or misinformation. You and I know that even a bad idea, when it is properly funded and a lot of noise is made around it, it will even appear to be a good idea. So a lot of misinformation about production systems could be one of the reasons why we are not able to produce healthy food. So that misinformation could be directed about the production system, leaning towards industrial agriculture, or that misinformation may be directed towards the food itself. One of the challenges I always ask myself is, how did we come to a generation where now people can despise millet, can despise sorghum, can despise cassava and potato, and if you have children, you have to force them to eat or to promise them that if they eat, you will buy something better for them. It is because of misinformation that was peddled in those early days. The other aspect that we know for sure industrial agriculture has done is as long as the farming system was changed, what has happened is that we have cleared natural and semi-natural habitats, which used to provide ecosystem services that supported people. For example, even during hunger period, people were able to eat herbs, people were able to eat fruits, people were able to access berries, and that complemented their diets. But now people then have to depend on their pockets. And the challenge with that is that now those who are monetarily poor chemicals that will repel an insect pest. And then there is a crop that will produce a chemical that will attract the insect pest. And so, in so doing, you are able to divert the pest from the valued crop to another trap crop. At this moment, then maybe as a teacher, I like asking questions. What are some of the techniques that we use to divert pests that affect our crops? I'll give you an example that I found very interesting too. One of the challenges in production of cereals in Makueni is birds, so that people don't want to plant sorghum because birds will come and feast on it. But then think of this farmer. The farmer has mulberry trees in lines in the farm and around the farm. And the fruiting of the mulberry tree coincides with the maturity of the sorghum. There is evidence that then the birds will be distracted and they will focus more on the mulberry and allow the farm produce to grow. Another example that some farmers told me, which I found unique, they do plant cassava in maize plantation because they really prefer maize as their food and they're entitled to what they choose as food. But then the moles are really destroying their crop, the maize crop. And because for them the valued crop, according to literature that has been peddled in the country, is maize. So then they use cassava as a trap crop. They plant cassava, the moles will be attracted to cassava, and then it will allow the crop, the maize crop to grow. So those are some of the examples that I would say I've seen, not necessarily as push-pull, but examples of practices that can be easily designed to serve as push-pull principles. So, having that background on push-pull, there are two push-pull systems that are dominant in Africa. One is push-pull that is in East Africa, and this has been designed as an integrated pest management tool in cereal production systems, that is in maize and sorghum. We saw in maize it controls stem Bora, it controls fall armyworm and also striker. And so in this kind of push-pull, illustrated by the image there, you have the companion crop called desmodium. And then the desmodium is a fodder crop, which means it allows integration of livestock because it produces fodder. And it fixes nitrogen, which means it increases soil fertility, and it is a cover crop. Okay? And then you also have Napier grass on the border. Napier grass then now is the attractant, the trap crop. Now, this kind of push-pull has evolved over time in response of climate change and other difficulties. For example, at the start, there was silverleaf desmodium, okay, as the companion crop grown inside the field, and there was molasses grass, Napier grass, not molasses grass, Napier grass. But then there is this problem of spider mites. So and also drought. Then there was a second generation push-pull that ICPET developed. And in the second generation push-pull, then you have the green leaf desmodium and Bracharia mulatto too, which is a fodder. And then there is a third generation push-pull, and the third generation then employs Bracharia, but the variety is called Xares. So the third generation then, Xares is resistant to spider mites. It's also drought tolerant, and it produces a lot of biomass. So here's a field that I thought I would demonstrate to those who have not had first-hand sight of a push-pull farm. I took this picture in a place in Western Kenya. You must come from that place to pronounce that name correctly. Although it is that one. That person comes from there.
Fully.
Yes, others will say emusu chui. Okay, so one of the things we can pick from this photo is that push-pull can allow for minimum tillage. When you have harvested push-pull, the desmodium, which are those lines, and on the sides it's napier grass, the desmodium will provide cover. Here we had trimmed the desmodium to allow for planting, but it can spread and provide ground cover. So technically speaking, push-pull is a conservation agriculture practice. So all those benefits that we expect from conservation agriculture, we get them from push-pull.
Just a question, and I'm asking this from the point of zero knowledge.
Yes.
Does desmodium grow in all types of soil, or is it just restricted to other types or some types of soil?
Difficult question. I don't have a very exact answer.
Can farmers use it in areas that
Yes. Okay, I know the answer, but you see, from where I sit as a scientist, there are very different types of soil. So I'm trying to think, is Dennis asking about clay, sandy, soil? Is Dennis asking about soil fertility? Is Dennis asking about loamy soil, alpha soil, you know? So that's what is mixing me.
My question would be about soil fertility, because
Soil fertility.
yes.
Yes. So soil fertility, desmodium is a nitrogen fixing crop. So it should be able to grow in that area with low soil fertility. But then when soil fertility is very low, it's always good to augment, to enable it to germinate, for it to be able now to grow, develop biomass, fix nitrogen, and improve the soil.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then here I'm providing an example of some of the crops that have been tested by ICIPE. These are not all, these are some, because of different reasons. You have seen people use groundnuts as a cover crop. Because one of the challenges that agroecology faces is that some of the crops that are called cover crops are not food. And so there is a need to move away from, except if someone has livestock, to integrate cover crops that are food. And so when we here, you will find that the CP has tested groundnuts, whether groundnuts can be able to contribute to elimination of strikers. It has tested crotalaria. Crotalaria, where I was born, has the name of MITO. And yes, that one now.
That's all.
Yes, Emiro. Yes, that one. Yes, so crotalaria, if you check in your farm, you'll find that it is able to handle some weeds. You'll realize that there are no weeds closer to crotalaria. Possibly it has some allelopathic effects. But then you may also realize something, that if it's growing closer to maize, possibly the maize closer to crotalaria might not be as good as the maize that is away. And so those are some of the things that we need to look at from the scientific point of view. It can control weeds, but does it have effect on neighboring crops? Okay? So in the picture you find that desmodium really controls weeds, eliminates. Crotalaria does suppress striker, and groundnuts is really not that effective. Okay, in South Africa, so I'll say most of my interaction with the people is in Kenya and in East Africa and not in South Africa. But in South Africa, what has happened mainly is the use of push-pull as part of a wider integrated pest management strategy in sugarcane farms against sugarcane stem borer, against the sugarcane stem borer. And here the components are molasses grass. I put an example of molasses grass and the push. So the push component is the molasses plant, and the pull component is the BT maize, and this siege. The sages. Is it called sages? The sages. Yeah, those ones. One of the things I like about molasses plant is its capacity to repel ticks. There's a time I was doing some kind of dairy farming, and a friend advised me to plant around the grazing area, and for sure, molasses plant does repel ticks, in addition to the other aspects. So, in this system, molasses plant then repels stem borer, but also the other good aspect of push-pull is its capacity to attract natural enemies. Natural enemies are enemies of the pest. So that by the practice attracting insects that feed on the eggs of the pest or on the pest direct, you help reduce harmful insects without using chemicals. So it's a really strong component of biological control. So here we'll go very quick. I want just to show you the link, how push-pull then can be able to link between agroecology, how push-pull fits in agroecology. And the first one is diversity, and that image shows the 10 elements of agroecology. FAO went into great details to try to define what entails agroecology. And so when you go through, I won't go through all the 10. I'll go through around 6. But still, the push-pull fits well in all the 10 elements of agroecology. Now, diversity. Remember, if you want Chakula Bora, we have to diversify our diets so that we avoid the idea of a narrow cereal-based carbohydrates diet. So it enhances ecosystem services and it diversifies diet. The other one would be about co-creation and knowledge. One of the things that I always feel is indigenous, traditional, and local knowledge that we are not tapping from generation to generation. And one of the ways that you can do to change our people is change their culture. And an easier way of changing our culture is through food. Earlier on, I mentioned about my grandmother. So I ever saw hand in hand about milling grain. And during that time, information is passed from generation to generation. We used to go and collect mushroom. And during that time, knowledge is passed from generation to generation. We used to make traditional salt, leaf, and you are told about its medicinal value and other things. So you find that agroecological practices like push-pull, they allow that process. What we are doing in push-pull is we're not trying to reach to farmers in a participatory manner to ask them what will they want integrated in push-pull. And in so doing, we are able to tap on traditional knowledge. We are able to tap on the knowledge they have about pest management and blend it up with the scientific knowledge we have about that pest management so that we will bring up something that is acceptable to the farmer but meets the needs of the day. The other aspect is synergies. What you will realize is that push-pull harnesses biological synergies to enhance ecosystem services. An example is just biological nitrogen fixation. It's really an important function that it synergises the functions, the benefits of push-pull. So that you have desmodium that fixes nitrogen. It's a legume for the maize or the other cereal that is not able to fix nitrogen. Now, think of the efficiency. To me, efficiency in push-pull comes when we are able to produce less without much external inputs. And so this reduces the cost, but brings about what I've explained about autonomy, the capacity to make the farmer more vulnerable to fluctuations in market prices, especially for agrochemicals. Now, there's this aspect of recycling, which is key to agroecology. And in push-pull, what we see is the fodder crop feeds the animal, and the animal provides manure that nourishes the plants, so that it's a closed cycle, and you recycle the organic matter into the system. And then resilience, that capacity to bounce back, to recover from shock. Okay, you realize that push-pull farms, they will resist attacks from these pests. Yeah, so that's about the benefits of push-pull technology. And here what we want to underscore is the fact that push-pull benefits are derived from diversification of the production system, and also the use of non-toxic chemicals. And so this means that it's environmentally friendly, but it's also one of the most appropriate tools that can be used to increase productivity of complex systems, like small-scale farmers, where a farmer has to produce the wood they need to cook, the food they need to eat, the fodder they need for their animals, and also rebuild soil fertility during the same period. So these are some of the benefits that by interacting with the farmers we have seen with our eyes, and farmers have told us. The most key, and this also resonates with my heart, is that there's need to improve productivity of the system, and there's also need to increase income from fodder, income from sale of surplus, and income from milk products. So this is our last slide, and I borrow some knowledge that we have from upscaling the benefits of push-pull technology for sustainable intensification of agricultural systems in East Africa. And so one of the things that I would like to inform us is that push-pull is already an intensified system. It has at minimum 3 crops. You have the Napier, you have the Desmodium, and then you have the cereal. But then some of the discussions that we have had with the stakeholders is that the Desmodium, for example, is not edible. And so for farmers who do not have livestock, how can they benefit? Okay? So what are the opportunities that exist in your areas? Because where we have worked, some of the opportunities that we have seen is integration of legumes in push-pull systems. So for someone who would have said that I cannot eat Desmodium, and the maize will be a narrow diet, then you can introduce legumes, which will diversify the diet and improve the nutritional content of the food. Now, there is this other element of productivity. Can agroecology improve incomes? Is it viable? Is agriculture viable? And so one of the aspects is introduction of high-value crops. Okay? One is because of their short duration period, and the other one is because of the demand. And so there are experiments with ISIPE looking at integration of vegetables, and those are both indigenous and exotic, into push-pull systems. Agroforestry is always at my heart. And so we are also trying to look, what will happen if you shift this push-pull system in a smallholder system that is dominated by trees? Would the new environment compromise the capacity of push-pull to control pests? Because, as we have said, farms are small, and the farmer wants everything within that farm. And so we cannot have a situation where we are cutting a chunk of a farmer's piece and saying, we will implement push-pull here. we are looking at a situation where we adapt push-pull to existing farming system. So at last, what we are looking at is how agroforestry can be integrated in push-pull. So on brief, one of the questions that I would ask us is, what are some of the options for expanding push-pull into other cropping systems and farming systems? From where you sit, either as a farmer or even just as an eater, you have to know how it was produced. What options do you see that exist for helping us produce healthy food? Yeah, and lastly, when we are talking about upscale, we normally acknowledge the consortium. We are a consortium of 18 institutions, and we are funded by the European Union. Thank you so much, Dennis, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was a very enlightening presentation for me personally. I believe everyone else here shares the same sentiment. So we'll take a short 5-minute break to collect your index cards with your questions, and then we'll pick out maybe 3 to ask Dr. Kuya. All the other questions will be noted down, will be sent to him. Once he answers them, we'll send them back to you in your email. So let's go for a short 5-minute break, and we might. Sorry. Okay. And we'll give Dr. Kuya a round of applause. Thank you.
I was actually wondering, kwa nini Mungu?
If you don't have that index card, Wilfred has them. So na kama umemaliza, you can also pass it on to her.
Yeah, there's a trend coming through. Live stream. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad.
So the free you're singing, even the nappy, you're connecting to the nappy.
Mm,
So you're going to
YouTube. YouTube, I love YouTube, but I can use YouTube and Facebook. I've seen even LinkedIn. When you go to my channel, okay, you go to your channel, for example. Yes, once you go, you start creating content, itafunguka. Like already you have 100, please produce them and then so you can edit to review number. Or you can even put big consoles to search so yeah, so many consultants. Sidhani hata wamelala.
So, welcome back to the Q&A session. I'll take some questions that you asked, and Dr. Kuya will try to answer as many as possible. The rest will be sent to your emails. So, first question, Dr. Kuya. How accessible is this medium to smallholder product?
This medium it's available in shops, especially within Nairobi, in seed companies. Our current is that it's slightly expensive at the moment, but there are initiatives that are looking at seed production for Smodium with an aim of lowering the cost and increasing accessibility and availability of smallholder farmers.
Second question, I think I'll merge two questions here, which seem similar. Are there particular legumes that can be used in bush and fruit technology?
So the current integration of legumes has considered cowpea, beans. At Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, we have considered pigeon pea. So what we are doing is evaluating the effectiveness of push-pull that has been intensified with this legume as a pest control tool. We need to see, once you introduce this legume, does it sustain the pest control ability, or it loses them?
Is push-pull enough to manage pests, or can you integrate with other ecologically sustainable pest management approaches?
A good question. Push-pull is part of integrated pest management strategy.
Will the integration of other legumes have the same effect?
That's what we are evaluating.
Alright. I see farmers growing potatoes in between or next to maize crops. Is it one of the push and pull ecological methods?
I think one of the strategy for planting potatoes is as a cover crop, which provides the benefits of suppression of weeds. It also has other benefits. It has not been tried as one of the crops to be used for push-pull.
Has push-pull been tested with sorghum and or millet?
Yes, it has been tested in sorghum, found to reduce striga in sorghum and also stem borer in sorghum.
And there seems to be a lot of interest around the water retention membrane. People want you to elaborate on the dimensions of the membranes, what units do you use, what is the purpose of the true membrane.
Yeah. So the dimension of the membrane are designed after testing capillary of the sandy soil. And so what we used was a 28 centimeter membrane in length, and the depth is 40, the other depth is 60. The idea is that once you fold that membrane into a U shape, it has sufficient depth to withhold adequate water. Now, the purpose for the two alternating depth is to allow for overflow of water, but then when there is overflow, the water does not just disappear into the sandy soil, but the water from the 40 then can go into the 60, which will hold a larger volume, and then when there is excess, then it can now overflow to reduce flooding or waterlogging, not flooding, waterlogging.
Okay, last questions. Are the chemicals released by Desmodium the same used for scientific research? Was it used or needed?
Possibly the questioner is asking whether there is need for more scientific research and whether the chemicals produced by the two different Desmodium species are the same. Need for more research? I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that.
Last question, last question, and I'm not sure if this is your area or
Yeah.
not, but somebody is asking, can you talk about rabbit urine as a pesticide?
Definitely not my area.
Okay, so thank you very much. On that note, we will end this session. I would like to remind you that all humanity has a right to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sustainable methods. We all have a right to define and influence our food and agricultural systems. This is the principle behind the regenerative agriculture movement that Passion for International stands behind. So thank you very much for attending this first session of the Chakula Bora speaker series. We hope to see you for the next one, and give yourselves a round of applause as you close out. Okay, so I think we're done now. Sorry. So, someone is asking the English name of Ibasti.
Bambaran groundnut. Bambaran.
Bambara, Bambara nuts. And how nutritious are they?
How?
Are they
I grew up eating them.
I love it.
They are good.
Sorry. Yeah, it's the way it's for the end is that nutritional.
Kumbe kumbe.
Yes,
Siswa.
yes.
I think we have nutritionists in the room, so I cannot comment on that, but it's very nice food from my
Amazing nutrition.
Where is the nutrition? Where is the nutrition?
Yeah, amazing. Yes.
Yes.
There is research at JPOT.
Yes.
There is research at JPOT on the utility of the termites. Siswa. And the people doing that research say it is very good.
Yeah, that is why I am who I am.
We have
Yes.
Thank you so much. So you talked about the elements of ecology. I think the last part of
Yeah.
your presentation.
Elements of agroecology.
Agroecology, yes, sorry. So you talked about the diversity and a couple of synergy. So I want to know, in diversity, you talked about and you gave us an example of you going to pick some mushrooms one time and also doing that. I want to ask with the kind of chemicals that already we have in our soils right now, to be very sincere and truthful, what can we do in terms of that push and pull project to encourage our nutrients in the already largely in our soils, to encourage nutrients in our soils, so that to have the diversity that we're talking about.
So one, from a scientific point of view, plants can help fix nutrients, but you see they can only do this in terms of nitrogen, in terms of carbon, because they are able to absorb carbon from the atmosphere and fix it in their biomass and turn it into the soils. They can fix nitrogen through nitrogen fixation or nutrient cycling. They cannot fix phosphorus. Phosphorus is not found in the air. They can only enhance phosphorus in the soil depending on what. So the idea is that there is some minimum amount of input that is required in certain soils. You go to places like Western Kenya where phosphorus is extremely low. I strongly believe from a scientific point of view, there is need to enhance that kind of nutrient into that soil for the land to be able to produce adequate biomass for regenerative agriculture to pick up. But also, depending on the organic material that you are using, then that organic material is able to recycle those nutrients, including that phosphorus and micronutrients. The challenge is if you are using material from depleted soils, which may not have adequate biomass, but continuous use of organic material will still enhance even those nutrients that cannot be fixed by plant, but they can be made available through nutrient cycling.
So even with the depleted soil, you can continuously use the organic.
Yes.
Then the nutrients will. The soil
That is the best approach because, for example, when you talk about depleted nutrients, you're talking about soils that are extremely low in organic matter, soils that are extremely low in carbon, okay, which forms the framework upon which these other nutrients are built. So the way then to do is use organic matter. That would be from my point, but maybe others have their opinion. Renewing that with organic manure will be the faster way. Let me give you an example of Western Kenya. So you have these soils that are highly acidic, okay, to the range that we are still growing maize, but when we do our research, we see that these soils are not suitable for maize. So you cannot continue putting in fertilizer. You put, but then the maize cannot respond. Okay? Because there's deficiency of other nutrients, even some of the nutrients that you are adding to that soil cannot be utilized by the plant. So what are we telling those farmers? One, lime, okay? Lime is an external input into the farm, okay? Two, use organic manure. Yeah.
Okay, I hear you. Is that, sorry, can I?
Yeah.
Is that, does that also coincide with the synergy, what you're talking about, in involving the ecosystem and also involving animals and,
Yeah.
I mean, does that
The synergy. So
synergy?
the synergy aspect, you are looking at the capacity of push-pull to enhance or to utilize, to harness the biological processes to enhance ecosystem services. So now that's at another level. Environmental processes of nature that regulate productivity. So the idea is that there are processes that certain plants can do that can stimulate productivity. The idea of synergy also comes in push-pull, allowing for integration of other livelihood options. So we're talking about, you have push-pull, can you try having animals? You have push-pull, can you keep rabbits? Do rabbits eat desmodium? You have push-pull, can you try fish? Will the fish benefit from the desmodium? You have push-pull, can you try chicken? And so material that is produced from one component of push-pull can be used in another component of push-pull, bringing about synergy, but also allowing for cycling.
Okay, thank you very much. So, final instructions. We will serve lunch, and since we are at Chakula Bora, we decided to have big lunches whenever we host these sessions. So the first one we will have a raw lunch. The next one we will decide which part of the country to go to. We want to go back to those routes and eat healthy food. So we hope you enjoy it. We will also take a group photo just outside or in the room, the photographer will decide. And finally, I want to acknowledge the students from Nipot who came today. So thank you very much for coming, and we welcome you to come again and again and again. On some housekeeping matters, there were guys who registered but haven't sent.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Isaac. I'm PHI. PHI is my branch. Since sometimes back like in 2015, 2016. That's when I came up with the whole program. I'm the one who decided what we are doing today is what comes through my veins. And basically, PHI is a non-profit organization registered in Kenya and in Baltimore, Maryland, US. And the purpose of the organization was due to the gaps that are found in our system, especially community system. As much as the government is there to supplement what we do or to do what is rightful to you, you still cannot do the whole thing, right? As much as it's your right to get education, but not all children are in school. As much as it's your right to get water, there is no tap water in rural areas. As much as it's your right to get food that is nutritious, balanced diet, but also to respect your sovereignty. The government is coming up with systems that are also failing our own local system. Like today we have GMO being brought on the table, and I wish Daktari should have talked about it. Industrialization is going to kill our food sovereignty. That's actually what led to the birth of Chakula Bora. And actually this is what has also forced us to come up with the Chakula Bora network series, especially speaker series, so that we have people who are able to talk about what the community goes through, what we are losing, and what we need it to be echoed somewhere to the policymakers. In this country, I think it is only in Kirinyaga that they have adopted, Kirinyaga and Bora that have adopted agroecology or organic farming. Those only two counties. So, assuming all the counties are going to adopt that, what does that mean? It's the best. They need the best for their own community. And the more we'll have food, the more we talk about food insecurity, is the more we kill our food sovereignty, is the more we welcome opportunity for cancer. That we know that it is out of toxicity of what we are taking. Today you have not asked yourself, where do you get your food from? Who grows your food? Do you care? How was it grown? Do you really care? And that's why we have fast food everywhere. But then the way the food is fast, it's like when we had a free primary education, it's free indeed. Children today, if you go to primary school, total class 8, you cannot write the name of the father. Actually, I was in a school whereby a student cannot read a sentence and the boy is getting into Form 1. So the education means it's free indeed. The same thing actually is coming into our food, right? So if we do not care where the food is coming from, therefore it means that all of us will rush into fast food, and then at the end of the day, we also die very fast, the way food is fast. So for PHI, we have a livelihood program. Now the livelihood program is actually focused on enabling farmers to have an alternative farming because the perennial crops are failing. If we come to Gilgil, like last year, nobody harvested maize, the whole community. So it means that we need relief food. Now, when we bring in relief food, where do we get relief food from? It will actually continue to kill our local seeds. Nobody is talking about it. Minister will never talk about it. Today they are saying they are going to give us 10 million bags of maize. Where is it coming from? Who grew it?
Yellow maize.
How sure are we that it is yellow maize?
The cows abroad.
Exactly. For your information, that maize was grown in Zambia. It's grown in Zambia and Zimbabwe. Somebody went there, he's growing around 2 million acres.
Yes.
That's the food that they're coming to sell here.
Exactly.
In South Africa, they're experiencing the same problem, better. Is it true? They experience, their seeds sovereignty is now gone. Now that's why we want to bring it back. But then, which alternative are we giving back to community? Now, for us, the alternative that we're giving back to community is looking at the diversity of the food that we're growing. Like farmer, if your maize doesn't work, you have the beehive, you can sell honey. So, by the way, before you go, we have honey. Without any additives, because also honey on the market is no longer honey, it is molasses. Or sugar that is mixed with water and mixed with some honey, and then they kill some 2-3 bees and they put inside. At the end of the day, you're feeding people. Because the sugar that you're mixing with honey, it is an industrial sugar.
Even peanut is being mixed with the marabluba and some
Exactly.
mixing even wheat flour.
So for us to have that, basically the Chakula Bora is a brand, and the reason why it is a brand, we want it certified so that we are able to certify organic food in Kenya. So that anytime you go and buy food, you check it's branded Chakula Bora, we know how the food was, where it was grown, who branded it, how was the management of the land, because like another big problem that I have here with the farmers, as much as we talk with farmers, the standard that the European Union are setting for our farmers to produce food is so high. And one of them is actually having a trade. So as much as we are telling farmers to do that, where do they dispose their waste? That's also another thing. And how does it affect their food? Right? So that's also one of the things that we are also focusing on. So for our livelihood program, we are doing beekeeping. The reason why we are promoting beekeeping is one, you cannot spray where bees are, you kill the bees. So because of the bees, you cannot spray your land. And then the bees will help you to during pollination, and therefore productivity of food will grow, right? The second thing we're also looking at it, today is raining, but then if you go in the rural village, there is a flooding. There is an outbreak of waterborne diseases, right? But then, go back, you realize immediately the rain is over, somebody is passing you with a bike going to look for water. Where did the water go? So you ask yourself, what does the government, what is it doing? But then the same village doesn't have tap water, right? So for us, what we are doing is trying to make sure that we are not sinking more boreholes. Because the borehole that was sunk when Professor you were young, it was 50 feet. Today, if you go to the same community, the borehole is 350 feet. So 300 plus. What does that tell you? The water retention is no longer there. Aquifer is being depleted, and therefore we need to recharge back. So how are we recharging back? We are giving farmers dam liners so that they are able to collect that water. They use that water for micro irrigation, but at the same time, recharging the water table. Okay? So when we are doing that, we are also introducing orchard farming. So for our push and pull, actually for us, it's like you're doing kales, and then you do onions, and then you do red pepper, because the red pepper will always keep away the pests, right? And then we also introducing what we call it, the garlic. Garlic is also good. Now and then we are coming up with a way of making the pesticide using tobacco. We use garlic, and then red pepper, and then chukua sabuni, and mix it as a sticker. Spray. Kesho tuna mboga kula. So with orchard farming, we are trying to make sure that because this land is small and it's not expanding, but the population is increasing, so it means that we are exerting pressure on the assets that we have. So what we are doing is taking like every farmer giving us a quarter an acre, then we plant different crops. At the moment, what we are doing, we are carrying out soil analysis with the Rongo University. That's an opportunity. They agreed to do soil sampling and testing for 50 farmers. So the reason why we are doing that is to identify what minerals are missing in the soil, so that we are able to know if we are going organic way, which type of organic manure are we supposed to make for the farmers to use to plant when we are planting those kind of different types of fruits. The third thing we are doing is health and nutrition. I'm happy you're here. You need to visit us. One of the things that we're doing is when you go to rural areas, there are dispensaries, but then they do not have drugs and they do not have qualified staff. When you sit in Nairobi, you feel very comfortable. But then when you go back in the rural villages, that's when you realize that people can share antibiotics. Now it's raining, and when you go to her house in the evening, she'll come to my house very fast and ask you, which antibiotic do you have that I can give to my child who's coughing? And then I'll give her, and then she'll go and take, as long as the boy stops coughing, they'll keep that, and tomorrow somebody else will go to borrow to that house and they share in the next house. And this is the same government with inclusivity and equal allocation of resources. But then I think the resources are put in our pockets that also they have pots, right? So what we did as an organization, we set up a health facility at the community. Of course, not for free. So we share with what we are making, because as an organization, we are not making any profit from the business. But then the community are so happy, because today, if you go to the dispensary that we have at that place, if you have a minor cut, they send us for us to stitch at the clinic. If you do not have, they just do the prescription and send it to the clinic for you to come and buy drugs in our facility. So in other words, it's actually serving that community. Because initially, when you move from that place to town, it's around 300, 400 shillings. So you can imagine you're going to town to buy a drug of 250. and you're spending 500 shillings because it used to 50 to 50. Does it make sense? So today, because of the facilities available in the community, we are able to buy those drugs there at 200, maybe 150 shillings. So that's how we are serving the community. The nutritional part is very tricky, and actually that's one of the areas of interest to me and also to the organization. We want to do what we call 1,000 days of a child. In the community, we have realized that we have more children that are HIV positive that nobody is talking about. You go to school, the teacher tells you we have 37 children who are HIV positive. And nobody knows them. And when they get to class 6, 7, 8, they have girlfriends and boyfriends. So we continue spreading HIV. Now, for 1,000 days of a child, we want to identify that at that point and start working on it, especially when women are pregnant, when they give birth, until the time children are ready to go to school. Are we able to monitor what they eat, their health, and also give them a play center? That you can come and drop your child, and you go do your work, and then come in the evening, pick your child and go home. This is the community in the urban area, now coming urban, whereby children will just roam in the center. So even children will be sexually abused, and nobody knows. You come to realize that your child was raped 4 or 5 days later. Or else in the morning when the child starts, when akienda kususundi anaanza kulia, you realize, hey, kumbe mtoto alizapiwa jana. That's one the situation that we are trying to come up. The second, the other thing is actually we are planning to come up with a kind of a home care follow-up for the geriatrics. Because what I'm talking for 1,000 days, it's for pediatrics. Now, for geriatrics, these are some of the pre-existing conditions that elderly people go through. All of you are in Nairobi. If you ask them when they finish school, they want to stay in Nairobi. By the way, if they see their mothers or their sisters calling them because of their grandmothers, and they really don't care. When they leave them in the community, I don't know if you have seen that in the media, most of the times in Muranga, Nyeri, somebody even the house is collapsing and the son is a CEO somewhere in town, right? So we want to do the follow-up as an organization to find out these people that are still in the villages and they are elderly, how are we able to support them? One, if they have a pre-existing condition like diabetes, they have blood pressure, they have arthritis, some of them are HIV positive and so forth, how can they be supported? Making sure that they get nutritious food, maybe they get treatment, or else there is that follow-up to make sure that if they are given drugs, are they also taking their drugs? And if they're taking those drugs, have they eaten? And if they ate, what did they eat? We have a lot of young people who may be willing to be part of the bandwagon to make sure that we are supporting these people. Many other times that people are coming to the organization to say like, oh, can I volunteer in your organization for the next 3 months, 6 months, and 7 months, and 1 year, right? Because you do not have a job and you want an experience of how you're working. These are an opportunity that you are able to support these people in that community at that time. So that's why we are having that program under health and nutrition. Now the last part of health and nutrition, we are running a program, especially on sexual reproductive health for students, because we believe children are good change agents. Unless we work with the children at that age when they're in school, it's very hard for you to change somebody who is mature, right? So we are going to schools, primary schools and secondary schools, especially. We normally swap, me, Vincent, and Fred, and Ulovin. They'll talk to girls, and we issue sanitary towels. We'll talk to boys, because we want to have men. Today, women, they fight, they beat men every day, because we do not have men, we have children, we have boys, right? So unless you talk to boys and let them understand that you should not be fighting your wife, if you beat your wife, it doesn't mean that you're a man, that you can sit down and discuss this at that age in school, and let them appreciate their mothers at home. I'm telling you, will not be in the next coming 10 years, will be America, tutakuwa tuna gain contract. By the way, for information, utakuwa unaambia, unataka tuone siku ngapi 2 years, tunaandikiana 2 years, ikisha wewe kanyanga, mimi kanyange Fred. That's where we are moving, right? But unless we do this at this early age for people to respect each other, people to know their responsibility, and people to appreciate even other people, because we have intertribal marriages that are already coming on board, right? But then when we get into election, skilled unajuanga ni mjaluo leo ni Kikuyu. But hii siku zingine nyinyi ni wapenzi. Siku nyingine tunajuaga huyu ni Mturkana na wewe ni Mkale. Why? Because when we get to that point, what are the values that we hold ourselves as men especially? So that's why we are having that program. The other program is education. For education, we don't do, we are doing a lot in schools. We are doing rainwater harvesting for water to drink. But at the same time, we want to develop infrastructure. Infrastructure in a way that we have a program, we call it a doctor school. Now, a doctor school is like we are trying to look for people, let's say a professor, like in your school, in your college, or in your institution. You may decide like we are going to adopt one of the school at PHI. You solicit funds, and that money is sent to the organization. We go, we sit down, maybe you give us a representative, or else we go, we sit down with the institution, and we find out, in this school, what is it that is missing? Most of our schools, you realize that you cannot teach when it is raining, because it doesn't have a scene. Or else, even when it is raining, children cannot sit in class because it's very cold, it doesn't have window panes. Or else, if you go to those schools, you realize, like we have some of the schools in my home area, they are made of mud, with mud walls. So, what are the possibilities that children will not be having jiggers? But in the 21st century, we still have schools that children will walk to school without shoes. The same school have 20 acres, but then children don't take lunch in these schools. Right? But then the teachers are in that school, they are the ones who have taken the space, they are growing their own food. Why can't we grow that food so that our children can take lunch in that school? So that's why we want to work with schools. We want to have partners on board so that we are able to make sure that the resources that are available can they be used to solve other problems. You know, we have schools, but there today, it's free primary education, it's free indeed. I went to one of the class that a teacher is teaching students, 70 students in a class, and then you ask this teacher, when did you last check the books of the school? And they tell you like, assistant babysitter. And they are very proud of themselves, and they tell you that in your eyes. That should not babysit, because watoto 70 will expect nitafunzaje. Nitamaki kitabu gani niache gani. You know, it is realistic. If we have a program that is able to generate food, then the money that is being wasted can be used to employ 4 or 5 teachers to supplement them, so that that class is divided into 2, right? And maybe umayona mtoto mwenye ametoka public primary school akiwa na 200 or 170 marks, akienda seko yenye inafunzwa anapata minor. And then you ask yourself, what is the correlation between this primary school and the secondary school and the results that we are getting? Therefore, it means that we are failing in some of our responsibilities. Now, the last one is affordable housing. We have not done anything. But then we have realized that in the community where we are working today, everybody is coming up with brick houses. Wanachoma matofali. That is actually destruction of the environment. If you ask somebody who knows matofali inachomwa na miti ngapi, watakwambia wanakata miti literally miti kama 4-5 ndio wachome matofali 1000. So if everybody will construct a house with their bricks, hakuna miti imebaki. And as we are talking to you now today, the same place we are having flooding. On Thursday, the reason why actually we have come here late is because the other day we are distributing relief to some of our members who are carried away. We lost like 7 people? 9. 2 are found, 2 are missing. We can't track where they are. Why? Because people have destroyed forests. So agroecology is something that we are also bringing into the program, especially in school. We want to establish school garden, but also we want to establish tree nurseries so that every school is able to plant at least 2,000 trees every year for the next 10 years, which means we'll have over 20,000, 25,000 trees in school. And if every school that we are working with is able to do that, we realize that these children will also be, actually they'll be stealing some of the trees from the nurseries and planting them at home, right? That's another conduit that we are going to use to make sure that as we work with the schools, we are able, even if they take as much as they can. It is one of the basic things that we're going to see happening. Otherwise, that's what we do in Nakuru. For water, sanitation, and hygiene, we do rainwater harvesting for household and also for schools. For household, it's because like it is the only place, the place that we are working, it is in Gilgil. There is no river. Hakuna mto kwa Gilgil. It's actually classified under semi-arid area. with a biannual rainfall that is not predictable, and now with the climate change, it means that the area, we don't plant when we used to plant. Like we have been planting, in that area people have been planting around March. Today, they're getting to April. We have people who have not even plowed their land because they are not sure. And now that meteorologists, they are saying that in the next, in June there will be no rain. So people are also scared. So we have a confusion that we are having in the same community, that we are not sure what will happen the next week. So you can imagine, as much as people have planted, some of the people that we are talking to, the whole 5 acres was swept. So there is nothing. Actually, wanatuomba mbegu. Tunaona sisi tumeleta blanketi na nguo because tunajua inafika watu hii. Atuambia hata wachane na blanketi sasa. Shamba ilibebwa, si mtupe mbegu tupande tena. And that's what is happening. Right? So for us, we are looking at it like, how do we impact these people for the next maybe 2, 3, or 5 years? Change their lives. From the tracking that what we have done, when we get into a household, we are able to carry out a basement survey. Some of the farmers that we have worked with, they are not many, around 20. We have tracked that when we came in, the person paid like an average of 1,000 shillings per month. After 1.5 years, the person is able to make 7,000 to 8,000 per month. In the next 2 years, I'm sure that farmer is able to make 35,000 to 40,000 per month, depending on what we are going to implement in the community. And that's what we are doing. So for now, as you go on, we are also soliciting for clothes, we are soliciting for food items, non-food items because of emergency cases. We are trying to come up with, and also making sure that that is the same problem we are going to experience. Since the rain started, we need to be having almost every week response in that community. We have some parents whose children have not gone to school. So for us, we took them clothes that we are able to solicit from staff. And then we have realized that we need to do this every day. And if we are able to do it, it's not because we are a philanthropic organization. Yes, we are. But then also looking at it, how do we make it more sustainable? As much as we are trying to make them sustainable, there is that emergency needs that needs to be addressed. So if you have clothes that you don't want, kindly, when you are coming here next time, send them here. Just come drop them here. We'll collect them. If you can talk to your friends. We also need some items, food items. If you're able to buy unga, bundle moja, you're able to buy unga moja, kilo moja. Let's organize, and we are able to come and collect it and take it to them. And also we also welcome you to join us when we are going. Sometimes we talk. Unless you see it, unajua tunafika mahali tunaenda kugawa, badala ya kugawa tunaanza kulia. And I tell you this, I worked during the emergency. I started working during the 2007 post-election violence. My first job organization, I worked with Save the Children. I don't want to share with you what I went through. This is the worst. I got my first job, the first day. You're supposed to respond to Kelion. And I got in the house, and naingia tu kwa nyumba, natoa shati, nitakuoga, napigiwa simu, narudi. Driver ametumwa kwa mlango. We need to head to Kelion. Sometimes when we have this peace that we have today, let's thank God every day. Leo tukapata mama amepigwa mkali, anakaa Njenge. You look like a porcupine and you have a child. Mtoto ana breastfeed. Mama amekufa. Yeah. And today I look at that girl and I'm like, she's a bit late, and I'm like, I wish you knew nilikubeba nikakufunika na jacket yangu. I'm happy because I can see that lady, and I'm happy because I rescued them, right? Can you imagine a scenario that today you'll go and eat and somebody doesn't have anything to eat, and then you take that food and throw it in the dustbin? I landed in Somalia in 2015. I'm just landing in Bosaso, and they have wamelipua bomb. Tuna drive kwa media watu. And I am busy getting parliament, and they speak stupid things. As if we are not human. And I wish one day the parliament will take our MPs to Somalia for only 2 weeks I can tell you watatoka huko wote wakiwa mapasta. There is one guy I worked with, he works here with a bank. And ananiambia unaenda wapi? Naenda Malvani. Wacha nikuwekee tu mafuta. Because he knows. We were in that situation. Tulifika huko tunaitana wawili tunaanza kuomba. If you remember in 2016 there was somebody who was killed. Consultant from European Union in Bosaso. I had the last meeting with them and I told them, guys, don't go to that trial. Don't. Wakaniambia hapana, tumetumwa na president ametupea security. The same security killed. Why? And they're coming to assist their own people. But then the government doesn't see the importance of these people. So unless ourselves we take responsibility and support our own people, I'm telling you this. Wachani wambe tu kwingine. Hii parliament haitaisha. We are the only people who will go back. Go to your churches. Go to your team. You have, I know you are in over 10, 15 WhatsApp groups. Solicit whatever you can. And if you can't even come with your team, I'm more than willing to take you. Not because I want to benefit. I really don't care. But I just care about ule mtoto amezaliwa, ule mtoto analala nje, ule mtoto hana chakula, mtoto mwenye haendi shule. Na imagine if everybody can handhold somebody. If everybody leo tuchukue tu, sema mimi nitakuwa napea huyu mtoto 200 za lunch. Ama 50 bob every day za lunch. Hakuna mtoto wetu angekuwa kwa resistance. But because people, they have made it as a conduit, they are getting money from it. Even mambo ya food, it's actually a conduit. So if you are able to come together and we do not make money from people, but we support people to become money. I can tell you we go very far. Otherwise, thank you so much. We'll always be available and always feel welcome. And always feel welcome to drop us as many emails as possible. We have talked with the doctor. He's willing to, we're willing to handhold some of you. Internship after graduation. And maybe during your attachment, if you want somewhere, we may be willing to have those opportunities at the university. Otherwise, thank you so much and God bless.
Thank you very much.
Yes.